Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ramph, here to usher you into May 22nd. We're just at the end of May already. It's kind of crazy because April felt like it was a flash in the pan, and now May is looking to shape out to be just as much the same. We had interesting weather this last week or so, but we can expect this weekend to look pretty nice. Memorial Day weekend is usually kind of like one of those kind of rained out weekends now and again. We had a pretty good one last year, but this year, there's just not much going on in terms of events. For Memorial Day, but also the library and MCAT, as per usual, will be closed on the Monday for Memorial Day in observation of it. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to talk about some city council meetings because they spent about 5 hours of city council voted in favor of the Midtown Commons, despite the concerns of a handful of folks coming in every meeting since the beginning of last spring. However, the recent Ogren artificial turf debate ended with the company moving in another direction. Some people think Missoula should look into future park space and landscaping practices and look into rescinding pesticide use on our fair parks. And so this is Shannon Parsons kind of kicking off the public comment meeting at the beginning to kind of discuss this.
In Missoula parks, pesticides applied on our playing fields and green spaces don't just target weeds. We are dismantling the food web that birds need to reproduce. Insects, especially caterpillars, are the foundation of bird survival. 96% of terrestrial birds rely on caterpillars to feed their young. A single brood of chickadees requires up to 9,000 caterpillars. The American Bird Conservancy and Chicago Bird Alliance have both documented this clearly. Using pesticides means fewer insects, means fewer birds. And this isn't just about birds. It affects every Missoulian, children, dogs, families. Pesticides and synthetic fertilizers run off into our creeks, linger in our soil, and drift through the air.
All right. So just the long-term consequences of using shortcuts to make sure our green grass stays green, but only by look only. She also mentioned bird populations are a main crux of the argument, but some of these larger studies coming out of Iowa, which uses pesticides like Roundup, which contain the cancerous chemical glyphosate. So the city has worked with natural herbicides to alleviate the strain of these harsher chemicals, but not at the frequency to cover all parks in the city of Missoula. They technically only use it on McCormick Park off of Craig Lane currently. Paul Smith also chimes in on this topic as well.
According to the MSU extension, up to 70 million pounds of pesticides are lost to drift each year, persisting as droplets or vapors for over weeks or days. There are direct links between pesticide exposure and respiratory illness. An NIH study in 2024 confirmed that early life exposure to common herbicides increases the risk of developing childhood asthma. We should all find it unacceptable to knowingly harm children in ways that we know contribute to lifelong disease. Children unfortunately have no say in the matter, but stand to suffer the most long-lasting effects compared to adults. And there's very limited, if any, real benefit to the community from using these poisons.
All right. So yeah, this is just an example of how people can utilize the public comment section to help forward any ideas, complaints, and issues that are happening within the city of Missoula, and something that perhaps locally we can do to help maybe inspire other communities to do the same. Of course, the biggest topic of the night was Midtown Commons. So, of course, you may know already that the city approved this large 200-plus unit, not just a complex, but townhouses and single-dwelling homes. Suzette Dussault, frequent commenter on this subject, spoke about the importance of city lands, and this is what she had to say.
We have an opportunity to use these lands to put into land trust for the desperate need we have to house our Missoula families. So in both the housing report by the city and the county specifically says we cannot continue to do business as usual. Business as usual would be to sell these to a developer to develop whatever they choose to build on them. But what I would love to see instead is that these city-owned lands become our community property in a land trust, where the land is then no longer taxed as a property tax. The land is no longer assessed as part of the value of that home, and so that home automatically becomes less valuable, and it makes it hopefully more affordable for our working families.
All right. And that was Suzette Dussault talking about that. Much like Rivara, many organizations came together to make that one possible, including the Montana legislature that allowed TIF funding to be used for affordable housing projects. They call that vertical integration of TIF monies. But since it was originally used to leverage developers to mitigate blight, and Missoula kind of inspired the rest of the state to kind of use these TIF dollars in more creative ways like this. Despite the history lesson, the means of the site were combed over a lot to the point where they had to try to fulfill all these concerns of affordability while also adhering to the fair market rate housing, which is a slave to the current market. Mayor Andrea Davis moves forward to the public hearing on this, and this is what she had to say.
And this is a real important opportunity to bring new life to land that has sat largely vacant since 1976, nearly 50 years. And to do so in a way that is consistent with longstanding community goals and adopted city policies. The vision for this area did not start with this city council or with this administration. Many outcomes the project achieves: improved connectivity, expanded park space, housing, and reinvestment in Midtown were identified more than 2 decades ago when the Urban Renewal District 3 plan was approved by City Council, and then in 2002 when the Urban Land Institute studied this area and concluded that it is an area where some of the most intense development and mixed-use types would occur in Midtown Missoula. So to be clear, the project proposal that we have recommended and is in front of you today is not the most intense development allowed under our current zoning or development code. It is a project, though, that we believe strikes a balance between one that is compatible with the neighborhood, achievability in today's market, and capable of delivering meaningful public benefit.
Okay, and so the Missoula will continue the mission of big picture versus neighborhood woes. In so many ways, the city goes big, the people complain enough, and they did shrink enough to accommodate the view shed of the area as it pertains to keeping up with certain characters. There are always going to be quite a few large buildings and a whole slew of townhouses being built behind Bob Ward's and Sons section of land. Annette Marchinsalt from MRA spoke about those housing types a little bit more, and you get a kind of like a bird's eye view of the graphic.
Multifamily housing just south of the park, condominiums west of the park, and and then down at the south, some single-family homes, and then the purple blocks would be commercial, proposed commercial. So this project includes proposed 20 townhomes, about 152 condominiums, 56 multifamily apartments, and 6 single-family homes.
Okay, and you kind of get the idea, like I was saying, the ones in blue are the townhouses. Looks like they're even extending over past through here. And then, of course, Johnson Street, where the roundabout and Mary Avenue that goes adjacent to the Southgate Mall will be extended through this area that separates the new 1.6-acre park with that giant condo complex, apartment complex, which is going to be housing more than 152 condominiums in that particular area. All right, so as we get further into this meeting, one of the things that happens is that Dale Bickle also talks about the compliance for the developer, and this is what he had to say about that.
The council is being asked to approve the purchase and sale agreements and the development agreements that establish the conceptual site design and park design. A lot of the detailed technical questions raised, things like ADA compliance, environmental permitting, building standards, engineering review, those are all part of the future permitting process, and the developer is required to follow city standards and laws and regulations. So after the land is conveyed, Miramonte must meet the same requirements that apply to every development in Missoula, including ADA, building code, stormwater, zoning, and all applicable federal, state, and local laws. So just wanted to make that clear.
Okay. So, you have to understand that a lot of times the developer themselves have best laid plans, and they have everything pretty much in order from permitting and things like that to make sure they check all the boxes that are required from the city of Missoula. But from the very beginning, the city has met with citizens during public meetings and been invited to neighborhood council meetings to discuss this, even having special programs that MCAT has recorded ourselves with these meetings that are a little bit more face-to-face between city staff, MRA board, Ellen Buchanan, and more. Carrie Schreiber gave public comment, spoke about cottonwood trees, and it is definitely one of those things that really feels like it's a last-minute Hail Mary that this community has put in to help curb development.
We all benefit from the hard work and intelligence of mature trees and the gifts of oxygen, shade, habitats they support, natural medicines they create, and emotional and spiritual substance they provide, substance. These old friends deserve not only our respect and our reverence, but our kindness and our compassion as well. And it boggles the mind that the city honestly intends to destroy every precious tree in an area otherwise lacking critical established shade habitat, especially with climate change, especially because it's a heat island, with every creative opportunity, people, and financial opportunity at your fingertips to weave this into a park, a complete park experience. And you know what? It could be like Reno. It could be like Tom Allen, Westside, Northside, Franklin, McCormick, rather than a pavilion with biomimicry when we already have the real thing.
All right. So people got really connected to a lot of this undeveloped land and the cottonwood trees that lay upon there. And she also mentioned the spiritual connection to this area and to have this park be another one of those mini parks by design, despite keeping it the way it is, which was never the city's plan. Some citizens cited the need to preserve those trees. Sarah Giuliani also gave comments on the city efforts to convince folks about those same cottonwood trees.
The narrative that trees are not suitable for an urban setting is misleading. Look up when you're walking around neighborhoods and observe how many cottonwoods and elms you see. Justifying raising all trees because a private owner could do the same thing is just disingenuous. As a community, we purchased the land and now it is in our care. May we be good stewards of the land, care for the next generation, and uphold the Montana Constitution. Councilors, I'm sorry that the city put you in this position because this development should never have gotten to this point. As our representatives, I hope you are empowered to hold the line and protect this vital ecosystem thriving in the middle of town.
All right, so if you have been paying attention to my city council reports over the last couple weeks, the concept of cottonwood trees was recently brought up in, I think, the last week or 2 weeks ago meeting on this particular matter. And from my perspective, unfortunately, this is my own personal opinion on this matter, it really feels like it's a Hail Mary attempt to get this project stopped. And, when you think about it like this, best laid plans will always go through, and people who are just like, we don't want that. It's like, why? It's because this, and this, and this. And then once there's an available excuse, they latch onto it. I've seen it before, and this is just another one of those things. But it would be fine if Missoula had 0 cottonwood trees. As I am allergic, joking aside, they made a point, but it was something that wasn't spoken about until the very end of this overall process. MRA Director Ellen Buchanan spoke about these plans, and this is what she had to say.
I'm not sure that when it was in dual ownership that it would have developed as one, it probably would not have developed as one master development. The way it was divided up, it was challenging to develop them separately. but there was never consensus among the two owners as to what should go there, how to go about developing it. MRA actually facilitated 2 master planning processes with the property owners at the time to try to spur redevelopment of that. I mean, as you look at an aerial of Missoula, that area stands out like a sore thumb as to why in the world is this still vacant? And we were never able to do that, so we offered to purchase the property.
All right. So yeah, that's basically the background of it. It's many of the cities moving forwards, kind of like forward mindset is basically activating a lot of these city-owned lands. That was Mayor Andrea Davis's big push as of the beginning of 2026. They wanted to figure out what they could do with the city purchased lands, reinvest it, sell it off for surplus, and a lot of that money, especially the money that they're going to be getting through TIF investment on this particular site with Miramonte, will be aiming towards getting millions of dollars in return in investment for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So that's part of what they're trying to do. But a lot of the people who wanted this site to be used for affordable housing, very much like Rivara, now has to reckon with the fact that they're just giving it to a developer to develop this thing, getting money from this development, and using that money for affordable housing somewhere else. So it's one of those things that the city had their priorities and they moved forward on this. Their main focus was the park. That was the very beginning motivation behind it, and everything else up until this point. Even the 5-hour meeting was very much city council asking staff, folks back and forth. Very little public comment towards the end, but the 5 hours was basically devoted to the city trying to convince the people that they did their homework to make sure that Miramonte is up to code and this development exactly what the larger Missoula area wants as opposed to the local neighborhood requests. So neighborhood versus city of Missoula, it's not uncommon. I've seen it before. The same thing happened out on 4th Street when they built the Reed. That was just another one of those things that the city used the leverage of land that they owned to help negotiate for more affordable units. And in this case, this is just increasing the housing stock by more than 200 units in this particular area next to Bob Ward's and Sons, just south of the Southgate Mall. All right, as we move on to climate conservations and parks, they're looking to adopt a voluntary energy stretch code that encourages electrification and improved energy efficiency in buildings. Essentially solar power. This is to get data and opt into efficiency standards brought by the Climate Action Team of Missoula. Devin from the Associate Transportation Planner spoke about this. Philip Chica, this is what he had to say about this.
This really originates from a grant performance requirement from our Energy and Efficiency Conservation Block Grant, or EECBG. So in that grant, one of the pieces that were included was that we would pass some sort of voluntary electric stretch code. If you're familiar with stretch codes, a lot of other communities will implement a stretch code before maybe a more aggressive or more stringent code comes online. But also some other communities may not show like the direction the code's heading. It could also just be like, this is the best practice, or this is an ideal code. So the purpose of the standard is to meet the intent of the grant, but also we took a pretty close look at it to avoid any language that may conflict with state preemption. So,
yeah, and one of the things is that the state of Montana is definitely not green energy forward as a whole. So the city of Missoula has to walk that tightrope to make sure that they can make this as an opt-in voluntary process and work with developers and use education as a way to do it in terms of how much energy is being used in many different organizations, and big organizations to small operations. One thing is that cement makers, the ones that have to use the most amount of energy, according to this a state survey that was done many years ago when they implemented, apparently, like I only learned about this when they were talking about indoor cannabis grow operations, because temperature controlled areas and the energy consumption needed to keep it at a perfect temperature for those plants, on top of being way more energy suck than it is for cement manufacturers. So, the whole idea of cement, the reason why they use so much energy is because you have to keep the cement trucks churning so the cement doesn't harden and damage the truck and they lose the cement. And part of that, I don't want to give too much of a history in terms of that, but examples aside, solar panels are just a tool at this moment as an easy entry for energy consciousness. Devin also brings up the goals of this particular guiding principle.
The guiding principles of this document are that the community values buildings that are efficient, resilient, and designed for a clean energy future. Another guiding principle is to prioritize all electric construction, and when you do so, it reduces building emissions over time as the electric grid becomes cleaner. We also include incorporating backup systems that can enhance safety and reliability during extreme weather and grid disruptions. We also take a look at cost-effective and durable energy strategy, and make sure that we share that can begin with strong building envelopes.
All right. Yeah, just a means, a tool. Many of the energy climate action team has been pushing forward, and modernizing isn't something new, as any sane person would want to find alternative ways to enhance and maximize their properties. Of course, there's always prevailing owners who are fine with receiving rent and lease checks above all else. Advocating for something like this at a rental facility could also raise rents for the modernization as well, so there's always that catch to really look into. And sometimes it feels like property owners stub their toe and they add another $25 to $50 a month to your rent. You just never know. That's the problem. But we're not talking about rental issues, because there's a lot of rental issues going on, and I'll talk a little bit more about that with more of my news report. But Devin also talks about the long-term effects on moving forward, and this is what he had to say.
So we're envisioning this as an educational tool, but I think it can also serve as a second life in the future. There's not currently any incentives paired with this standard, but I do believe that it could support an incentive structure in the future. So if there were ever any funding opportunities that could support something like this, we could take a closer look and maybe revisit the standard, or look at it in another way and provide incentives for the community. But currently, it's just kind of an educational tool that highlights what might be some best practices.
All right. So if you ever need advice and any thing to help improve your energy efficiency in your building, the City of Missoula and this organization through the Climate Action Committee. And then at this point, education is paramount in making these kinds of options as tools for developers and redevelopers to opt in if they want to expand this practice. Incentives could happen down the road, but for the most part, this will lean on experts like Devin to foster this program for anyone interested in modernizing their local businesses. Up next, we got some new programs airing on MCAT. Here are some of the new programs featured through our Media Assistance Grants programs for many nonprofits and civic organizations in the City of Missoula.
And I look to the light when the sun goes down. I pray for peace. Now, we're going to start off a little column of spots. So realize that for years, I conducted a children's choir in Oakland, California, 428 first, second, and third graders. Just take a moment. Just try and picture that. Yes, all at once.
What are you doing in the elevator, Malcolm?
Banging on the inside of the door.
Okay.
Hello? Hello? Anybody out there?
So if you go in through those double doors, you would hear him.
Are you okay for a sec?
I'll go. I'm just gonna sort of hold on to your arm in like a vice grip. I'll do the left arm.
I'm used to that. My mom always does that. Anytime scary movies, driving, going to the Sun
not
Road.
Letting go.
Yeah. So I'll poke my head in. Malcolm?
Helping people maintain their independence and quality of life. When the beloved Sealy Lake Sunday Market was in danger of closing, we stepped in, operated it for 6 years, stabilized it, and today it continues successfully on our property. We also created Coffee and Computers, where retirees help neighbors with phones and laptops while building community over coffee. During winter inversions, air quality in our valley became a serious health concern, so we helped kickstart the wood stove changeout program, which replaced more than 150 old wood stoves in the downtown core with cleaner burning models. Today, our community has substantially healthier air. We also helped launch a Bear Smart collaborative focused on education and reducing human-bear conflicts. None of these ideas are entirely unique to Seeley Lake, and that's actually part of the point.
Welcome back. Let's talk about some movies that are coming out this weekend, and not just the Dubbin Stuff I'm about to show you later on in this episode. I'm going to talk a little bit more about these movies, including a new Star Wars movie that I guess people kind of knew was coming out, or just like, cool. Isn't this a streaming show? But when you cannot spell Mandalorian, but you can write Grogu, comes the third season and a movie to wrap up the story about a boy and his bounty hunter father figure. Watch as they navigate a post-episode 6 world of Star Wars, where everything is bright and hopeful before the downfall spiral that is the sequel trilogy. Watch as Mando looks to work for the New Republic's government by being a mercenary for hire, and you can expect him to be unmasked and fight against criminal underworld or something. You know, I hear that this is just an extended episode of The Mandalorian, but like season 3 Mandalorian, kind of like one of those like kind of mid-quest episodes or whatever. I don't know. A lot of people are saying it's a Star Wars. It happens. I don't know. It kind of feels like people got spoiled with Andor and their high profile that they decided not to. They decided to pass. All right, Passenger. Imagine you drive by a horrible accident on the highway only for the same forces of evil that caused the accident to soon follow you. You're in a haunted house, but this house is a Winnebago RV thing big enough to hide in corners, and a mirror trick where you close the mirror and the monster's been behind you the whole time. And that's what you can expect from this movie, basically about a road trip haunting. I love boosters. Whether this movie is about drag queens or rave babies will be up in the air, but the synopsis basically says there's a rich girl and she makes a lot of her people mad, and then they end up stealing her high-end clothing fashion, and then they end up selling her fashion on the cheap side. Gets ripped off by the disgruntled employees looking to cover that. And possession is 9/10 of the law, and these ladies are pushing their luck in a heist meets high fashion. All right, then we got Corporate Retreat. Have you ever, been on a work trip and are forced all day meeting with your coworkers and boss, doing trust falls and learning to get along? Well, efficiency and making your boss all the money sounds like a horror film, but this movie essentially your boss hunting you for sport. It's like, imagine going to work corporate retreat and you're just like, you know what, instead of firing these guys, I'm gonna hunt them. And that's basically just more of this kind of stuff. Let me guess, AI and remove people from their job by the next fiscal year, and instead of letting them go, bang, bang, bang. All right, anyways, Saksharan, weight loss movie about people eating the ashes of dead people. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And unfortunately, they have to have consequences for doing that, because I'm assuming somebody read something online, it's like, oh, you could do that? And then they're just like, we got to make a movie to prevent people from doing this, so we're going to make a horror film about it. And so the idea is that you ate the ashes of a dead body, you get haunted. That's the premise of this movie. It doesn't have to be, the premise is usually original, but horror stories are not unique. They're pretty much opaque when it comes to just being like, boo. And they're like, oh no, I went too far. I shouldn't have done the thing that I was told not to do, but I did it anyways. Oh, now I'm in trouble because of the ghost. All right, those are the movies that are coming out this weekend. There's quite a few of them, and, yeah. Okay, well, here's Up next, a little less disgusting when it comes to weight loss goals, but Dubbin Stuff from the 1945 movie, And Then There Were None.
People got no reason to. Rich people. Ugh. Can't think of anything. Would you mind stop doing that? It's not my fault you don't like my kind of music. Nobody likes your kind of music, okay? Well, this is part of the writing process. I'm just trying to figure out how to do this first, and then I'm going to make something really, really cool. I know how to play hot cross buns. Would you like to hear that? And for one last time, I told you, this is not how you play pool. Let me show you. What's going on in here? Well, I'm just teaching this scumbag how to play some pool. Is this true? Are you a scumbag? I don't know anything about being kind of scumbag, but yeah, sure. I'm pretty sure this guy's a hustler. He's been taking my money all day, and I don't know what to do about it. Well, you told me I'm supposed to sink these balls in, and then you say I'm not supposed to sink those balls in, and therefore I lose. One thing you should always know, kid. One thing. Learn the game. Well, I'm one to gamble without thinking first. And that's why I'm rich. Well, not for me particularly. I only have $5,000 in my bank account. You owe me $20,000. Well, the game's not over yet, buddy. See? Look how good I'm playing the sport. I can knock the balls in. One. You know what? You're supposed to hit it with a pole cue, you know that. Don't drive me with a good time. Old man McGuckin is pushing me over the coals. I don't think that's a saying. Will you stop scamming my client? Whoa. All's fair in gambling and love, war, stuff. And besides, I can do whatever I want with my money. Couple bad bets, but I have the most powerful thing in the world. Belief and love in my family and my friends. I can believe in anything, and it's going to turn out okay. No, it's not going to turn out okay. You know that, right?
Can you lose your money at something else besides pool?
Don't you sass me.
Pool's a dreadful sport anyways. Wouldn't you want to play lawn darts or...
Cornhole. Cornhole's really fun. Yeah, but... What are you talking about? I don't think you understand how this game works. But cornhole is a fun game. I know cornhole is a fun game. I don't want to solely cornhole with gambling. I want to waste it on this stupid pool game. You're kind of a hustler. Well, thanks for chiming in, Jerry. I love your opinions. Sir, please stop arguing with the people. You think you can spot me $5,000? I got to make another bet. Good, I might have to sell my kidneys. You're not going to quite like what we're going to have for dinner tonight. Kidney beans and... Asparagus? I want asparagus. I want my pea smelling. I want some beet soup, but for a completely different reason. As you were. Okay, let's see how this game goes. See? I can nail the ball in every single time, and there's nothing you can do about it. See? I'm the best pool player around. There's one ball left, and now no one can stop it.
So some news coming out of Montana this week. One of the things that I kind of stuck out more than anything was the idea of land swapping in the state of Montana, something that no one really thinks about when they try to trade their large parcels of land in the state of Montana. But the Montana Land Board voted Monday to overhaul the process it uses to evaluate land swap proposals. This is the first time Land Board has made sweeping changes to the Montana land swap policy in more than 20 years, and it happens with limited public notice. The Montana Free Press broke this story as more news that came out about the lands tend to be focused on changing the rules about the time where public lands are being threatened. No coincidence? While Trump's Big Beautiful Bill advanced the use of public land sales for the purchase of restarting the drill baby drill policy that has made him popular with big oil and older folks who believe petroleum and coal is the way to move forward for U.S. energy dominance. From the Montana put pressure on our leaders to dismiss those public land sales in the final push to pass the Big Beautiful Bill. The rule was also challenged and still kind of up in the air as the new rule opened the door for third-party influences when working with private-public land partnerships when it comes to these land sales. Much like people who have whole mountains or large undeveloped areas which are harder to sell in terms of small ownerships because of lack of infrastructure, land swaps allow for states' land managers to exchange public land for private land or equal or greater value to the state, which uses revenue from the trust land trust to support public schools and other government programs. This would open the door to private equity to get involved with our public lands. There is more than 5 million acres of state trust lands in Montana. The land board, which is composed of Montana's 5 elected officials, have the authority to approve exchanges, which are often used to consolidate land ownerships in areas where public and private land are intercepted into this checkerboard pattern that creates public access challenges. According to Montana Free Press, Montana State Auditor James Brown introduced the proposal, and while the board voted against extending the public comment period by another 30 days by request of our own Governor Greg Gianforte, this left the public comment period short and the notice even shorter. One section of the policy, for example, specifies that the trust land should generally be valued for its highest and best use. Considerations will be made for limiting factors. It instructs the DNRC to apply the commercially reasonable discount for state lands lacking documented legal access, land that is checkerboarded. Another change pertains to the state law specifying that the state lands with bodies of water that have significant public use or access to navigatable lands and streams can only be swapped for private lands with similar water resources. Brown's policy narrowed the definition to specify that the state water resources must have a documented history of being meaningful, used for crop irrigation, livestock watering, fishing, recreation, floating activities, waterfowl hunting, to be subject to the law. Because of these changes, third-party consultants can be used to upsell public lands and leverage it further than the board, which handles land swaps, would lean on. So involving private equity to be involved with public lands, it doesn't quite explain the consequences of this, but it leans into the idea that public lands have yet another big change to how to approach them in Montana, courtesy of a growing money interests of Montana. Speaking of government, it looks like the old RFK Jr. Make America Healthy Again will affect the way you get SNAP benefits here in Montana. And starting on September 30th, you will no longer be allowed to buy candy, soda, or any sugar-centric items. The state March waiver requesting the restrictions circulated by Gianforte's office Tuesday and signed by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. The list includes candy, a stable product including sugar, honey, or otherwise sweeteners in combination with chocolate, fruit, nuts, and flavoring in the form of bars, drops, or pieces. So they want to be very clear on that. High sugar beverages, which include non-alcoholic drinks sweetened with more than 10 grams of sugar per fluid ounce, energy drinks with more than 6 milligrams of caffeine per fluid ounce, or more than 140 milligrams total caffeine per container. So sorry, Monster fans, the definition also includes drinks that often have certain ingredients like stimulants. Prepared desserts, processed, self-stable, prepackaged sweet food intended for immediate consumption without preparation. So a lot of things for sure. And it seems like high sodium content is safe to buy through SNAP, which also contributes to high blood pressure and heart disease, but that's another story. The grocery stores will have to train up their new benefits changes, and everything will start on September 30th of this year. This week, the resolution powers vote was taken off of Republican-run House as they were on the verge of passing. So this had to do with the Iran war and the War Powers Act. So the whole idea is that they had, Trump could have essentially done whatever he wanted for the 60 days. That, of course, extended even longer. And House Speaker Mike Johnson has not been shy about suspending the House vote on various things that counter Trump's agenda. And speaking of Trump's agenda, the DOJ indicted 94-year-old Raul Castro, brother of Fidel, former leader of Cuba. The U.S. has been eyeing Cuba for regime change for some time now, especially cutting off their oil from the Venezuela, causing a humanitarian crisis for citizens. Escalation is the clear path for U.S. and invasion is just a matter of time. It might even happen over the weekend for all we know. Iran has been a disaster with less than 30 ships passing the strait in less than 48 hours or so. And not to mention they're still working on a peace process, but it really feels like it's been devolved down to Trump's administration's B, C, or even the D team to kind of handle this. it feels like Trump has lost interest in Iran altogether. This week has been interesting for voters as moderate Dems and GOP candidates have been swept aside in some regions for more dramatic options. Thomas Massie lost his primary in Kentucky. It will not be able to run for his congressional seat for 2026. Ed Gallerine, backed by one of the most expensive middle fingers courtesy of the Trump administration and his allies, after a record of the most spent on a congressional primary with more than $32 million being dumped into that district, including AI videos depicting Massey holding hands with AOC. And speaking of AOC, who gave them the bump to Chris Rabb out of Pennsylvania, who ran on the populist left campaign as the Socialist Democratic, that is getting traction since Mamdani. AOC threw her support behind him, saying, if you want to change the Democratic Party, we have to change the kind of Democrats that get elected to serve in Congress. For 2026, this is looking to ignite the hardliners along with people aligned with the middle moderate being left in the dust by both sides of the political spectrum. All right, so those are the kind of like news wrap-ups and whatnot. There's just too much going on. But I'm going to jump right into some of the events that happened this weekend. There's really nothing really posted for Memorial Day, but they do have a day camp for some kids looking to play some baseball. But kicking off this morning at 9 a.m., the Carlos's One Night Stand folks is looking to do a pop-up gallery for some last-minute clothing that they've had over the years, and they're going to be doing that this weekend as well, starting at 9 a.m. at the Burnswick Gallery. Stroller Strides Mommy Me workout classes at Bonner Park every day, Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. Missoula Food Bank meal distribution at 10 a.m. today. Their Bear Bait Dance is doing a Pilates drop-in at Westside Theater at 10:15. Tiny Tales at 10:30. Lunch at the Missoula Senior Center at 11 a.m. And for the people looking to get who have food insecurity, they have a food pantry at the Missoula Food Bank, and also the Poverello Center has their lunch at 11:30 a.m. They do breakfast, lunch, and dinner daily. Butterfly release at 11 a.m. at the Butterfly House. Ed Johnson at the Old Post playing some music starting at noon today. For your brunch and lunch goers. Yarns and Watercolor at the 4th floor of the Missoula Public Library for anybody who is interested in arts and crafts. All Abilities Art Club at Base. This is for folks living with disabilities and their caregivers to join them for an art class and get some more resources along the way through Opportunity Resources and more. Young Adults Writers Group at Missoula Public Library. This is for kids interested in starting their writing career in literacy. Missoula Public Library every Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon. Learn computer animation with Blender at MCAT at 4 p.m. This is a great way for people to learn 3D animation and also rig some 3D animation as well. Friday Food Truck Pod. Missoula Senior Center is trying to launch their food trucks at the Missoula Senior Center. So far, they've had, the first turnout was one food truck in the first week. I saw it, I drove by there, I just wanted to check it out. But I hope that they're going to get some more pods there. So if any food trucks or vendors in town are looking to be a part of this, they're doing their food truck pods at the Missoula Senior Center every Friday at 5:30 throughout the summer. The Planetarium Show, The Oldest Light in the Universe. This is their theme. They're going to be doing it at the Payne Family Native American Center at the University of Montana campus at 6 p.m. and another show at 7 p.m. And we got D&D Guild for Adults at 6 p.m. This is an online campaign for anybody who has been continuing with the Missoula Public Library, and Brian, who hosts as the Dungeon Master. Sorry. Live music with Beth Lowe, Beth Horgan, and guests. No, it's not Beth Horgan. That was a misprint. I know the guy who does it. It's like Greg Horgan. But anyways, 10 Spoon Winery at 6 p.m. for some live music, jazz, chill music. Karaoke at the Jack Saloon at 7 p.m. Jazz at Leaf and Quiet at 7 p.m. Ecstatic Dance at Sacred Alley at 7 p.m. Queer Dance at Free Cycles at 7 p.m. Celtic Guitar at Free Cycles with Tony McManus is playing and performing at 7 p.m. at Free Cycles. They're doing their summer series where they do a lot of concerts. It's quite a barn burner, quite literally. John Gooley is going to be playing at Cranky Sam Public House, playing some jam music at 7 p.m. Hostage Situation is in a 16 and up electronic music at the Zootown Arts Community Center starting at 8 p.m. Hell is Real Tour, playing some music at Monks at 8 p.m. The Spills at Union Club at 9. Idle Ranch has the Top Hat at 10:30 p.m. And then as we jump right into your Saturday, we got our markets and such from 8 a.m. to about 1 or 2 p.m. It's a great way for people to get out and buy some produce. Makerspace walk-in hours at 10 a.m. Line dancing at Missoula Senior Center at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Missoula Speed Steel match. So Deer Creek Shooting Center, the Missoula Speed Steel is an easy and fun shooting match open to new competitors. This is for people who like to shoot, but think they can shoot better than other people who shoot. And so this is a great opportunity for people. And the match fee is $10. All rules and other info, such as the equipment and ammunition is required, can be found on the website. The Deer Creek Shooting Center, they're doing this weekend. Spring Bear Aware, so Travelers Rest State Park is doing a Bear Aware program. Weather's getting a little bit better. The spring bears are pretty much out and about, probably starting to eat some food. They're not quite as desperate and weak as they were before, so be a little bit more bear aware as they're getting a little bit more bold over the summer. Museum tour at the Missoula Art Museum for anybody interested in going to the Missoula Art Museum, including their open teen studio at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, along with MCAT's own workshop for kids doing stop animation every Saturday at 1 p.m. We won't be doing it in July, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get closer to that. A beginning guide to drawing trees with Jason Poole. Montana Natural History Center is hosting these kinds of geared focused activities at the Natural History Center, starting at 1 p.m. Saturday, Tiny Tales at 3 p.m. at Missoula Public Library, and then Missoula Butterfly House is doing a predator feeding, learn how bugs consume and eat each other, starting at 3:30 p.m. Saturday. Rosa Laseco is doing a kinky bingo to fundraiser for Tell Us Something at Monk's Bar at 6 p.m. Animal Instincts Drag Show. This is an 18 and up drag show at the Zootown Arts Community Center starting at 7 p.m. James Landman at the Old Post at 7 p.m. Solid State Karaoke at Westside Lanes. DJ Chris Moon is going to wrap up your Saturday at the Badlander. And then Sunday, we got some butterfly meditation at 9 a.m. Sunday Stitch and Bitch at the Space DIY Studio, Arts and Crafts at 12 noon. This is the former site of La Petite, kind of where they had the South Side Kettle House. Salsa dance class, Rocky Mountain Ballet Theater. Clay Studio is doing beginner classes at 1 p.m. on Sunday. Dog training lessons is an ongoing thing every Sunday at 3:30 p.m. at Legion Baseball Fields. Pinball tournament at Odd Pitch at 4 p.m. NFL bingo at Tamarack at 5 p.m. Dram Shop is doing trivia at 6 p.m. Sunday Draft at Jaff Works. Karaoke at 8:30 p.m. to wrap up your Sunday. And then, like I said before, we're doing a baseball camp called DBAT. This is going to be a day camp for people who want to fill in their kids' time for Monday on Memorial Day. No school, more baseball and softball fun at DBAT Missoula. And this is from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. for Memorial Day camp. This is for players, kids age 7 to 14 of age. And yep, it's a day camp. It's fun stuff with that. And then also we'll have a rock concert on Monday night with Claypool Gold at Kettle Amphitheater. And really just not much else. It's just Memorial Day. You know, there might be a bunch of events that are probably not going to be happening on Memorial Day through MissoulaEvents.net. But for the most part, that's pretty much it for my show. You know, I want to thank you guys for joining me this morning. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And for MCAT and Spectrum Television, I'm Scott Ramf.